Blame yourself if I don't love you, okay?
Hello everybody. Welcome to the show. Please hit the subscribe button and give this episode a thumbs up. Kody Brown, star of Sister Wives, disclosed that he had thought about walking away from his marriage to Robyn Brown, his final surviving wife. While on a Valentine's Day date, Kody, 56, and Robyn, 46, discussed the status of their relationship in the Sunday, April 27 episode of the TLC program. After his 3 wives, Meri Brown, Janelle Brown, and Christine Brown, left their multiple family, they were talking about their opinions on polygamy. Kody acknowledged that it's hard not to be bitter about the fact that I bought off on it and did it because in the end, in the last moments of it, it felt terrible. After telling Robyn that he felt slapped by polygamy, Kody said that Robyn's comment was loaded when she questioned if he was missing what it was before their family broke up. In a confessional, he stated, "I don't want to be flippant with my answer because we were devoted to this, but I'm not interested in plural marriage anymore. I don't want that headache, the questions, the problems, and the uncertainty about trust. So, I don't want to pursue another woman. That's not where I am." He stated that he was completely discouraged by the idea that people feel obligated to be in polygamous relationships, even if he claimed that his children are a blessing that resulted from his failed marriages. Robyn disclosed that the experience had an equally significant impact on her, stating that she was heartbroken by all of this and trying to make sense of it. In a confessional, the mother of 5, who had previously stated that she had always desired to be in a polygamous marriage, added that she was very scared of plural marriage due to what has happened to their family. Although he acknowledged that wasn't always the case, Kody stated that he is now at peace with the status of his and Robyn's monogamous relationship. "I was sabotaging myself when we failed at it because I've been in multiple marriages for a long time, and it was my only marital focus," he said. "On days when Robyn was treated unfairly, I considered ending our relationship altogether, and the only reason I started self-destructing was because I was so broken." The 18-year-old father then expressed regret to Robyn for the dark space he had created when he attempted to ruin their marriage. He stated that it wasn't fair to her after acknowledging that his actions harmed her. He went on, "You're avoiding me because I was upset and because you were turning away from me. I was literally thinking negatively about us in addition to being angry at being rejected and at our failures in multiple marriages and everything else I was going through there." Kody Brown of Sister Wives regrets claiming that he never loved his ex-wives, saying that divorce just does that to you. Kody Brown, star Sister Wives, retracted his earlier remarks about not loving his 3 ex-wives, Christine Brown, Janelle Brown, and Meri Brown. Robyn Brown mentioned how miserable Kody, 56, has been since he dissolved his spiritual marriages to Meri, 54, Christine, 53, and Janelle, 55, in a teaser video for the Sunday, April 27 episode that Parade posted. "I understand that you've been extremely angry, and I think the most important thing is whether you can process it enough to be yourself again," Robyn, 46, said to her husband. In response, he acknowledged that his attitude had changed. "And I apologize, and I understand that I've been in a bad place. I apologize to you. I apologize to them." In a confessional, Kody went on to consider his previous breakups, stating that they had a detrimental effect on him. "Plural marriage is challenging. From my narrow viewpoint, I believed it was only difficult for me, but I was unaware of how difficult this would be for my wife." He said, "I'm attempting to move on, but I approach it with a certain cockiness and arrogance to combat the feelings. All of the I said about not loving my wives and other ex-partners was simply an attempt to express how I felt about it." The 18-year-old father went on, "I was bullshitting myself. Oh yeah. I'm not affected by this. I said, those nasty women are no longer there. Since that was my sole defense, this is really the nonsense I was saying. I never loved them anyway. That's what divorce does to you." In the past, viewers witnessed Kody's spiritual marriages fail, all of which were chronicled on the reality show. While Janelle terminated their spiritual marriage in December 2022, In Touch exclusively disclosed that Christine was the first wife to abandon him in November 2021. In January 2023, a month later, Meri and Kody jointly released a statement confirming their separation. The man who was once renowned for his steadfast belief in leading a life governed by faith and several relationships is now dealing with spiritual and emotional disillusionment. He is now thinking carefully about the fragments that remain after being the focal point of a big complicated family that was founded on multiple commitments. The last connection he had left, his relationship with the last woman he was still with, was scrutinized by his own words in an open discussion that was recorded on a recent episode of a long-running reality show. He disclosed a shocking fact while seated opposite his spouse during what was supposed to be a romantic celebration of their togetherness. He had thought about ending the one relationship that was still going strong. The discussion took place against an important and symbolic backdrop. Their table was laden with unresolved sadness and the burden of personal failure, despite Valentine's Day being a day to celebrate love and unity. He acknowledged that his acceptance of several couplings had once characterized his spiritual path, but that it had now just resulted in heartache. He remarked, "I felt as though the very principles I once believed in had betrayed me." Once standing proudly next to 4 separate women in pursuit of a common faith-based objective. The guy acknowledged that the failure of that vision had left him hurt and resentful. "I fell for something that ultimately backfired on me," he thought. He said he felt as if the way of life he had advocated had metaphorically struck him. Even though he had always based his decisions on the idea of family, he now found himself doubting everything he had previously believed. He was asked if he ever longed for what they had before everything went apart by his partner, who had always thought that unity under one roof and sisterhood were beautiful. Her inquiry was straightforward but profound. He hesitated. Then glancing down at the table, he acknowledged that he had lost interest in finding more company. He revealed in a heartfelt confession that it now seemed draining and unsure to invite someone else into their lives. "I don't want to worry about loyalty or dealing with jealousy," he said. "I'm no longer in that area." He spoke with the fatigue of someone who has witnessed too many fights and endured too many betrayals, including his own. In addition to unsuccessful romances, he also reflected on identity. He had spent decades on a building that now seemed unfulfilling. One thing he did not regret was having children. In the encroaching gloom, every child born from those couplings served as a glimmer of hope. However, even that happiness was complicated. He wondered if his children's upbringing had come at too high a cost as he saw his family fall apart and felt his children grow distant. Refusing to cry, his partner talked about her own heartbreak. She had been as committed to the common goal as he had been. Now that the others had left and their house was more peaceful than before, she was also left lamenting the dream that no longer resided there. She acknowledged that the encounter had altered her. She had originally been excited about the prospect of creating a life with other women who would be co-mothers, companions and confidants. That hope was now sour. She acknowledged that she was afraid of what the phrase plural marriage actually meant these days. It has come to represent loss. The man claimed to have at last found some serenity despite their mutual grief. Not in victory but in silent consent. He was no longer in charge of a large multi-family home. Now a guy in a monogamous relationship, he was searching among the rubble for his identity. But even that trip had been difficult. To the amazement of many, he admitted that his internal conflict had almost caused him to ruin the one relationship he had left. He admitted, "There were days when my pain turned inward, and on those days, I would put some distance between us and consider leaving her as well." His partner listened silently as he described how he acted out in harmful ways due to the sadness of witnessing his previous ties break. He said he was sorry not only for his actions but also for his thoughts. He admitted to her that he was upset, and I pulled away in rage. He sensed it too. It wasn't fair either. He explained the downward spiral of emotional rejection, how her absence exacerbated his misery and his resentment fueled her separation. The end effect was a chasm that almost engulfed their relationship. They were still seated opposite from one another in spite of everything. They continued to refer to one another as partners. The foundation of their friendship, however broken, was still strong. Even though the goal of a large cohesive family had fallen apart, they had never experienced this new stage of life before. They no longer had to coordinate the practicalities of shifting family responsibilities or share their space with other homes. Both their home and calendar were quieter. However, they were starting to gain understanding in that quiet. The man and lady leaned toward each other as the sun sank outside the area where they had had their private discussion, not out of passion but out of understanding. The story they told was no longer one of a massive religious experiment. It was now a tale of emotional fortitude. He had designed a complicated system, but now he was just a man who had suffered, recovered, and was still working on his recovery. She was now creating a new identity out of the ruins. Whereas before she was ready to be a part of a greater tapestry of love and sisterhood, one well-known character on a reality TV show has gone into profound introspection as a result of the emotional turmoil that followed the dissolution of a long-standing poly family. The former head of a now-defunct polygamous household, who was once renowned for his self-assured and occasionally domineering manner, has started to show signs of a significant shift in his views on love, grief, and emotional reality. The strain of unresolved conflict, favoritism, and fluctuating emotional investments finally caused years of shared existence with several partners, all of whom were spiritually bound to him in a complicated familial framework, to collapse. Now that the dust has settled, this man seems to be sorting through the rubble of those shattered ties and confronting the barness of his own mistakes. He was recently questioned about the emotional damage his recent actions had caused in a public moment that was recorded during a private discussion with his remaining partner. He freely admitted how his anger had influenced his judgment, stating that a large portion of his recent animosity was motivated more by emotional self-defense than by fact. In a tone that blended sorrow with newly discovered insight, his statements were measured and earnest as he acknowledged, "I understand that I've been stuck in a dark emotional loop. I've said some terrible things, especially about the women I once shared my life with. It wasn't truth. It was survival." His apology was followed by a confessional piece that revealed a guy struggling with the ways in which emotionally wounded pride can distort emotional recall. He now acknowledged that his stubborn declaration that he had never truly loved his previous companions was more armor than truth. That talk about never loving them, that wasn't real. It was just me trying not to drown in everything I was feeling. I had no other defense but to lie to myself. I think I was trying to numb the pain by pretending I didn't care. These insights follow over 20 years of negotiating the lifestyle of plural marriage, which requires a remarkable emotional capacity. He once thought he could manage the needs and affections of many people because he was the head of a household with several strong-willed spouses. But now that these couplings have finally fallen apart, he finds himself gazing at the boundaries of his own emotional strength. He went on to say, "I thought I was handling it. I thought it was tough but manageable. But now I see how much I missed, how much pain they were in while I was just focused on my own battles." Sitting across from him, his spouse looked supportive but obviously in agony. She expressed a desire that he could return to himself and voiced concerns about the long-standing anger that had characterized his behavior in previous years. Her words were soft. "You used to have joy," she murmured. "But after everything you seem lost. Not just without them but within yourself." A new wave of vulnerability arose as a result of that polite encounter. His gaze lowered. He realized how tough it was to confront the destruction. "I know now I wasn't really processing it. I was reacting to it with blame, with anger, with denial. But at night when it's quiet I feel everything. And it's not easy to admit that you played a big part in your own heartbreak." Rekindling love bonds, however, does not appear to be part of his path to reconciliation. Instead, it's about healing and emotional clarity. He underlined that although he does not see himself going back to a plural marriage arrangement, he does feel a great need to respect the love and history that once bound his family together. "They gave me children. They gave me years of their lives. No matter what went wrong, I can't let myself forget that there was love. I think I owe it to them and to myself to acknowledge that." He acknowledged that the heightened pain caused him to react unfairly when he recalled the breakup of each relationship. He spoke of a mental downward spiral in which he persuaded himself that presenting his ex-partners in a bad light would make their absence less painful. Divorce messes with your head. You go from sharing everything to feeling like strangers overnight. It's easier to rewrite history than sit in the grief. But now I want to face it with honesty. He also apologized for the effect his decisions had on his grown children, many of whom have turned away from him because they feel he is being partial and uncaring. "They saw me at my worst. I said and did things that I wish I could take back. And they carry that with them. I hope one day they'll see that I'm trying to be better, even if it's too late to fix everything." For someone who is frequently depicted as defensive and domineering, this emotionally charged exchange represented a rare instance of humility. For both him and the audience, who have long followed the highs and lows of his complicated family life, it hinted at the potential for a sea change. The confessional concluded with a subdued acknowledgement of suffering, development, and hope rather than a dramatic act of reconciliation. He talked about desiring peace within himself as well as with the people he had harmed. "I used to think strength meant never backing down, always being right. Now I think it means being honest even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. As the episode came to an end, it was evident that although this broken family's journey is far from complete, there is a spark of something fresh in these times where the truth shines through the bluster. Maybe understanding but not reunion. Redemption not restoration. And that may be the most significant development in a narrative that has historically been characterized by conflicts over allegiance, power, and emotional detachment. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Get more updates daily. See you soon.